let's talk plural marriage and what the scriptures say. Then we can look at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who used to get nicknamed the Mormons. When people hear about our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, especially when they hear us by that nickname, Mormons, one of the most common misconceptions is that we actively encourage and practice polygamy in our day to day. Based on my understanding and my own research, let's see what the scripture says. There is a fair amount of references to plural marriage in all the scriptures. Let's look at this in chronological order. So by date, it appeared in the scriptures. So the first one, this is all about Abraham and how he practiced polygamy. And in Latter-day Revelation in Doctrine and Covenants, section 132, we learn that God approved of this. Number 2, this is Jacob, who also entered into a polygamous marriage. Then we have an opposing argument where it talks about the kings and the leaders. It's best if they don't have plural wives because it's a distraction. And the kings, they must study the laws of God and not get distracted. The fourth was on the supporting line and just emphasizing that the firstborn son out of all the wives, he is the one that would be heir to the father's inheritance, regardless of which wife came first or which wife was the preferred. Then we have the account of David. He had multiple wives, and at this point, he was favored of the Lord. The multiple wives were sanctioned by God, but we learned that his downfall was committing adultery. He stole another man's wife and then had her husband killed when it was realized she was pregnant. This obviously displeased God. Then we have Solomon, who was also favored of the Lord at the start, and he had multiple wives. But then he committed sin when he went his own way, and he ended up with 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, which is insane. Then we have an account of a man named Abijah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He was favored of the Lord. He had 14 wives. Then we have a priest named Jehoiada. He had 2 wives. And then in Isaiah, he prophesies of a period in the last days, which we believe we're in the last days now, where polygamy would be needed. Then we have Riplakish, who was a leader, and he displeased God by having many wives and concubines. He then taxed his people to pay for the housing and the luxuries for his many wives. In the Book of Mormon times, Jacob the prophet was told by God that they should only have 1 wife and no concubines. However, the Lord also said, unless he, as in the Lord, commands it for the purpose of raising the population among his saints. Then in modern times, as prophesied by Isaiah, the Lord commanded the practice of polygamy in the early 1800s for the purpose of raising the population among his saints. However, this practice was stopped in 1890, and all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from then on were taught and encouraged to have only 1 wife. So any member of the church today who is found to be practicing polygamy would be in serious trouble with the leaders of the church. We do not practice polygamy in this day and age, and those who do, they are not part of our church. So we can see that the scriptures so far have been somewhat contradictory. God saying he is pleased with some who have entered into polygamous marriages, yet angry with others who have done the same. But where the pattern lies, we learn that when faithful followers of God have entered into a marriage covenant with God, the Lord is pleased. When the faithful enter into plural marriages, God is only pleased if it has been first commanded by God, or permission has been granted by God prior to the marriage, and the man is a faithful follower of God and continues to be even after entering into a polygamous marriage. The purpose is to allow women the opportunity to enter into this type of covenant with God. Isaiah says that due to scarcity of men in times of war, for example, women wouldn't have this opportunity if it weren't for polygamy. If it is God's will to raise the population among his faithful followers. When it is not okay in the eyes of God is when it hasn't been first approved by God. When the plural wives become a distraction, or rather, the man becomes distracted by the women to the point that he forgets God and turns from him and focuses only on his worldly appetite, when it results in adultery, and when it is against the laws of the land, like in most countries today. Question: do you think there will be polygamy in heaven? Well, let's say a man marries a woman here on earth. They are faithful and walk uprightly before God. The woman dies and the man lives for many more years. During this time, he meets another faithful woman and gets married. When all parties die, do you think God would make the man choose which of his loving wives to spend the rest of eternity with? I don't think he would, which means there is likely to be polygamous marriages in heaven. Nowhere in the scriptures condemns the practice of polygamy. Many of the Lord's prophets have had polygamous marriages. But scriptures do condemn specific people if they abuse the sacredness of such a practice. For this seems to be a special kind of marriage covenant that should only be entered into with permission from the person you make the covenant with, which is God, and for holy, righteous purposes. This is my understanding.